Okay, welcome back to another episode of Chatting Cinema. We're here. It's me, Gianni,
I'm Flynn.
I'm Luke.
and this week we're going to be revisiting our favorite films of 2019. We kind of did episode 7, I believe, was our kind of like in progress list of our. We did a top 10, I think, of the year. And now we've seen every movie that we wanted to see, or at least that we could see.
We're trying.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm missing a
flicks.
few.
So we're going to be doing a list. We talked off camera about doing our top 5 of the year. I'm going to throw a curveball to you guys,
Oh no.
and I'm going to say top 3.
Top
So,
he had to hit us
narrow
with
it
that.
down.
three. Top three.
I'm
Oof.
scared.
Top 3. We'll go from 3 to 1,
Mhm.
1 being your favorite. And I'll start. I'm going to go with Marriage Story as my number 3 pick. It's a movie, we've talked about it a few times on this podcast. It deeply affected me. I think it's one that really resonates with people who watch it. If you've been through a bad breakup, or if you've been through, even in a healthy relationship, but you do have difficulties and disagreements, I just think it was such a raw look at how that can be and what it can be like. A great depiction of how, your relationship is not necessarily just you and your significant other. It affects everyone around you too, when things are not so great, or even when they are. Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver give, I think, career best performances in relatively still early careers for them. They still have so much that they want to do and that they're going to do. Noah Baumbach I'm so happy that he's getting the recognition he is getting, because he's been making films like this for years. Squid and the Whale, Meyerowitz Stories. He's been taking very real relationships and putting them to screen so well. And the way he writes conversations is similar to Sorkin, I think, in a way that it's very rhythmic, and you're watching it and it feels like a script, but it's also like I've had that conversation before with people. And I think that's a very tough thing for screenwriters to really capture in their scripts, and he does it so well. And on top of that, he's directing the film, so all props to him. Laura Dern's great in the movie. Ray Liotta gives a good performance. Alan Alda, all the supporting characters too. Just a great movie, and I'm happy I saw it.
Yeah, very recognizable cast that just kind of disappears in their roles. They're all so good. I think Adam Driver especially is just, I think it's a crime that he's probably not going to win the Academy Award for that movie, because I think he's fantastic.
Agreed.
My number 3, my top 3 is, there were so many good movies this year, and I think the top 3 kind of form a tier where like they can all be interchanged. They're all so fantastic. So my 3 was Little Women. And when this got announced that first it was Greta Gerwig doing it, I was like, oh, fantastic, it'll be a masterpiece. And then Saoirse Ronan was attached, and I was like, okay, great, yeah, it's gonna be a masterpiece. And then the cast just keeps filling up. The Timothée Chalamet, Florence Pugh, Emma Watson, Meryl Streep, Laura Dern. It was Emma Stone first, and then I was like, oh, great. And then she dropped out. I was like, oh, and then they replaced her with Emma Watson. I was like, oh, yes. So good. And this is the kind of movie where you just kind of like never want it to end, and you just feel like you can just live in this world created by this glow of the cinema screen forever. Greta Gerwig does such a good job of breathing life into a story that's been around so long, and really making it new and her own, and making it fresh, and despite being a period piece, making it feel so relevant to today. Greta is really special in what she's doing. I mean, to come out with Lady Bird and then follow it up with Little Women is just like so insane to me. Just being that talented and able to tell these stories that really get to, like you were touching on with Marriage Story, some of the things we feel in real life, and just being able to like really relate to these characters and this narrative. Everything about it is so good. This screenplay that she wrote, she's doing a lot of heavy lifting on this, and it really shows. It's phenomenal. And it's one of those movies where like knew from the first minute I was gonna love it, and then went into the movies and saw it and loved it, and I was like, yep, that makes sense because it's great. It's phenomenal. So that's my pick for 3, despite the fact that it very well could be 1 because it's so good.
Yeah, I don't like you for making it 3. I just have to say that because it's like I've been thinking like, what 3 am I gonna pick, and it's just difficult. But my number 3 choice is gonna be Just Mercy.
Oh,
I think it's criminally underrated. I think that the Academy hasn't recognized it. I don't know why. Like, it came out in time for this year's award seasons and all. I think that Jamie Foxx, Michael B. Jordan, and Brie Larson all give such real, heartfelt performances. And this movie has a lot to say about issues that are really relevant now, where it took place in the late 80s, and this was about death row inmates in the case of Jamie Foxx's character, who was innocent and didn't commit the crime, but he was on death row. This movie is heavy. It feels real. And I know a lot of people aren't so drawn to biopics or movies based off of real life events anymore because they're kind of being played over like a lot, like to get the Oscar buzz, to get the nominations. But this one really, really hits home. And like, I've been talking to some adults that I know about it where they remember those cases going on. They remember that happening. And then I talk to people our age and none of them even know what it is.
Yeah.
It's something that's glazed over in history classes even though it's such a big deal.
100%.
So I think this movie not only is just a great movie, but it brings awareness to something bigger than itself. And everybody involved knew it. Everybody involved was so glad to be a part of it. And I wish I knew more of the names of the people who did stuff in it because it really was well done. But that's my number 3 pick.
cool. Yeah. My number 2 pick is Flynn's number 3, Little Women. This had to have been, I saw it kind of at the latter end of 2019, and it had to be like the most wholesome movie theater experience of the year for me, I think. From start to finish, like what you were saying, I just didn't want it to end.
Yeah.
And I didn't know when it was going to end. And when it did, I just I sat there, and you're watching the credits, and it's like, wow, that was beautiful. I mean, and it was, because like you were saying, it's a timeless story. A great ensemble cast. I think everyone is just on their A game.
Yeah.
I think Saoirse Ronan and Greta Gerwig are like a duo that should just make movies forever.
Yeah.
I mean, they're amazing when they work together, and even when they don't.
But they're 2 for 2 when they're together.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Something you didn't hit on that I want to mention is Alexander Desplat's score in that film. So good. It complements every vibrant scene in that film so well. Everything just felt so electric about it. Like, you think about the dancing scenes in that movie, or even the scenes of the family like fighting, arguing, Christmas Day, like all of those iconic kind of scenes in the film. They stay with you after you leave. And that's, I think, the best way I can describe Little Women. It stays with you after you leave, and you're thinking about it, and you can go back and kind of like, you're having dinner with your family, and you can think about that movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, it feels good.
Yeah. I think that Little Women was one of the few like prestige Oscar movies, and this typically doesn't happen because people love to tear anything apart, where it's like the one thing that I never see anything about it. It just feels like universally, like everybody that sees it was like, oh yeah, it's fantastic.
Right.
So that's really nice. Another movie that a lot of people like, that I like quite a bit, my number 2 pick, is Parasite. I've talked about it quite a bit on the show. I mentioned it for multiple categories when we did our Oscars episode. So, I can touch on some of the other stuff. It's super relevant today. It's such an incredible depiction of class struggle, and something that I think I mentioned was that Korean audiences were speaking to how specific some of the struggles and things that the family went through were to them. And it doesn't even, it just translates so well to, I didn't even get those specificities or localizations, but it's so true to the heart of what so many people struggle with that it was perfectly translated for me. And I think it's really cool that Bong Joon-ho has been able to make a movie that's getting such a level of acclaim that it's opening more people up to being more open to watching movies with subtitles, and kind of going on that journey and finding films from other places, because you can find a lot of stuff that you like just by watching subtitles, and it's not, like you said, like it's a
1-inch barrier.
a 1-inch barrier that when you can get past it. But not enough can be said about this cast and Bong Joon-ho and the story he made and the script that he helped co-write and the direction of Bong. It's just so incredible, and it's doing so much with that. Like some movies, it kind of feels like there's like genre switches, and that kind of leads to like tonal inconsistency. But Bong is able to do it in a way that feels completely natural and perfect, and kind of like throws you for a loop in some of the things he does with Parasite. And so I think it's a sleeper for Best Picture. It could cross the finish line, who knows? But I think that one thing a lot of people agree on, that when they see Parasite, is that it's a movie that we needed, and I think it's a movie that's going to have a lot of relevance for a really long time.
Every time Flynn talks about Parasite, I'm like, I need to watch Parasite. Like, I know I needed to before, but like I really need to. But my number 2 pick, so narrowing it down is very difficult because I've had to omit films that I love. I think that you guys might speak about. But my number 2 pick is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So Tarantino's my dude. Like, I fell in love with movies partially watching his movies growing up, and like just this movie is my favorite of his. Like for me, as somebody who wants to be a filmmaker, and like I had just been to Hollywood, LA for the first time in my life, then seeing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it reminded me of my trip to there. It was a love letter. Wow, I can't speak English. A love letter to like the golden age of Hollywood filmmaking, all that. And it was just dynamic chemistry between that cast. It just worked so well. And like I loved every second of that movie, and it didn't feel like 3 hours. Like it was 2 hours and 50 minutes, and in the theater I was like, it's over. No, I want more. Which he is releasing that 4-hour cut potentially, so give me that. But that movie just, like, you can see how much passion Quentin has for Hollywood and for filmmaking through that movie. And I know he gets a lot of crap because he's kind of a weird dude, but he really loves what he does, and this movie showcases that. And it's just something I find myself watching like all the time. Like I'm just like, I'm bored. What am I gonna do? Oh, let me spend 3 hours watching this movie again because I've seen it so many times. Like I love it so much.
I'm hardly the first person to note this, but the sequence of all the neon lights coming on is just like the perfect, like this is what it's all about type moment for him, and I know that was like a special moment for him to make and kind of like do this recreation of that era of Hollywood, and like all those lights coming on. It's so good. He is, Quentin Tarantino is really good at what he does.
And like his whole like the main bread and butter of the movie is the TV scene, not the movies, which I thought was interesting choice for him as he's a filmmaker. But he grew up watching all of those shows. That's where he learned how to make movies, was through those B-list, C-list shows that aired on the 5 channels that you had. And like, or watching Japanese versions of those shows or movies, you know? And like you can see the influences he had. He got to recreate them. I can't even imagine how much fun it was for him doing that, you know? Because like Bounty Law may be a fictional show, but Quentin definitely watched a show just like Bounty Law every night. And like I just love that so much. Where like it's probably a full circle movie for him, and I love that.
I think, and you mentioned Tarantino, like I think that really bleeds through in his filmmaking too. Like Leo was saying in interviews that Quentin would assign him shows similar to Bounty Law to watch like over a weekend. And I think just Tarantino is the definition of a cinephile. There's nothing you can name that he hasn't seen, and I think that's really a great tool to have when you're a filmmaker. You can have so many things to draw on
when you're giving your lead actors homework.
So
I love that movie.
My number 1 of the year has not changed, I don't think, since the last time we had this discussion. It's Ford v Ferrari. I think, for me personally, when I think I'm ready to go to the movie theater, most of the time the kind of movie I want to see is something that's going to entertain me, that is going to hit me emotionally, and then I'll come out saying like, that was great. Like I think that's something that we all kind of want to see in every experience that we set out on in a movie theater. But Ford v Ferrari, it's the most fun I had at the movie theater in 2019. Christian Bale, Matt Damon give great performances, which is, nothing not to be expected from them, but still they deliver. And Bale specifically, I do think he was snubbed a little bit in the Best Actor nomination, the Oscars. But even the supporting cast, Tracy Letts, who was great in Little Women, by the way, John Bernthal in this movie, everyone is
John Bernthal.
Yeah, everyone's just having so much fun too, that you can tell, and that bleeds through when you're watching the movie. You're having fun, and it's a great underdog story. And you also you don't think of the great American company Ford being the underdog in a film,
right? And
here we are rooting for them. So very interesting, and I think James Mangold is probably the safest bet, as a director in Hollywood right now. When you're trying to get a movie made, he's probably someone you can rely on to make it great and entertaining. And I think it's worthy of that Best Picture nomination. It's not gonna win, but for me personally, I was so entertained by it. And I loved it, and that's why it's number one for me.
Yeah, it was nice. It feels like it kind of flew under the radar in the face of some of the other Best Picture nominees, but I agree, it's fun, and it's one of those movies where some people might just think it's a car movie, and it's well, no, if you're into car movies, this is what they should be aiming for. This is what you should aspire to be, because it's so well done, and like you said, it's just fun. It's a really fun movie. Yeah. Christian Bale is hilarious.
You have to watch
at
it.
times.
I really need to watch it.
As Ken Miles, so good.
Yeah.
So I don't think my number one has changed either. It's The Lighthouse, and this is coming from somebody who's not the hugest fan of The Witch, so I didn't. And I know that's a shock because everybody loves The Witch, but I don't know. For me,
Film Twitter attack.
I'm gonna get canceled for that.
Bye, Flynn. I'll miss you.
So I didn't know what to expect, but I was super excited for it. I thought the trailers looked really good, and Robert Eggers did something so interesting with The Lighthouse, and again, I feel like it really flew under the radar. That's typical of these independent movies, but usually when you get an Academy Award recognition, it kind of puts it more in the lexicon. But The Lighthouse only got cinematography, which I think is a shame, because I think Robert Pattinson gives the best performance of the year in it, and he's not nominated. I think Willem Dafoe can be argued as the best supporting performance of the year, and he's not nominated either. Eggers not nominated for director, which is fine, but it's really a haunting movie, and it's just a mesmerizing movie. You're kind of watching it, and some parts are odd, and but then it ends, and you're just kind of left with your thoughts about it. And I did not stop thinking about The Lighthouse for a long time after I went to watch it, and I think that it works so well in black and white. Some of the sequences just showing the ferocity of nature, the waves crashing on the island in front, so well shot. This movie's gorgeous. It still probably has my favorite cinematography of the year. Roger Deakins is going to win that Oscar, and it's fine, because what he does in 1917 can't be put into words.
Bonkers.
But yeah, I think it's a gorgeous movie. I think it's impeccably acted. It's absurd how good the performances are. It could be done as a play, and as long as the performances are still that good, it would work. I think the script is really great. It's really darkly funny at times. It's a really phenomenal movie that I think more people would like if they gave it a shot. And I wish it kind of was a little bit bigger than it was, because I really adored it.
So my number one has been said. So Little Women is my favorite of the year. I think you both said a lot of great things about it that I completely agree on. But my biggest thing is that when I looked at every single movie I've seen this year, comparing my theater experience, how I've liked it past, grown on me, whatever, I just absolutely loved it from the first second it started playing to the credits to now. It stuck with me, and in a time period where we're in a lot of negativity in the world, there's a lot of bad things going on, and a lot of movies do say things about those bad things. Little Women is just a delightful movie.
Yeah.
It's it's the true escape. Out of all the movies I've seen this year, it made me feel like I didn't have to worry about anything for 2 hours the most. And that's why I love movies so much, is that it has the power to do that. And from the scene where Timothy Chalamet and Saoirse Ronan were like dancing and that score hits, like, and they were just being themselves, like super, like it takes place in a time period where none of us, like our parents or grandparents, didn't even touch that time period, but it feels so real and so like that could happen to us now, just in modern times, but like the stories and what's happening feel so applicable, and it's such a great movie. Like, I don't know how you can watch it and not like it. Like, there's something for everyone there, and like all the performances, like everybody is such a big name in their own right, and they all mold into these characters in this world that just works so good. And like Bob Odenkirk is like only in like the latter half.
My
of
Little
the movie.
Women.
But exactly the line, you know, but that movie just works so well for me, and I feel like it might like last for a long time. That's still one of my favorite movies, and you know, Greta Gerwig should win Best Director, but Academy, you messed up.
Yep.
This is a subtweet at you.
Yeah, that movie is euphoric. There were so many phenomenal movies this year.
I love this movie. Thank you, 2019.
Yeah, 2019 was a great year for movies. And if you're looking for something to watch this weekend, you could take a look at any one of the movies that we just mentioned. But some other things that were not on our list, I would recommend like Jojo Rabbit,
Knives Out,
Booksmart, Knives Out.
Uncut Gems.
1917.
Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems is really good.
It was hard to leave 1917 off the top 3. It really was. Because I just saw that, so like I'm really in my honeymoon phase with that movie.
If you just watched Marriage Story or Star Wars and want more Adam Driver, The Report. Is on Amazon Prime. It's fantastic.
And so many of these movies now are like available to stream.
Yeah.
You know, or they were an Amazon original or a Netflix original. So.
Or watch Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
Yeah. So you can find my top 12 on my Letterboxd or my Twitter.
Link in the description below.
At Flynn Altamar. If you're curious on some of the other movies I really like this year. We just mentioned a ton of them.
Yeah.
There's so many good ones. So many good ones.
Yeah. The Farewell, directed by Lulu Wang, starring Awkwafina. Anyway, so many good movies this year.
Yeah. Great year for movies.
That wraps up our episode on our favorite movies of 2019. Thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. I'm Gianni.
I'm Flynn.
I'm Luke.
And we'll see you next time.